Hey everyone, I'm out here in Chickamauga, and I decided I'm going to start trying to do some little short, videos about just things I'm doing at the time of the year. That'll do each video, maybe each stop of the Elite Series, or if I'm out practicing and something comes to mind. So just start dabbling a little bit in this YouTube stuff. Nothing fancy, just off my phone, out on the water, at the campground. But being down here in Tennessee this time of year with the cold water, a big thing down here is flat-sided balsa crankbaits, or just flat-side crankbaits in general. Been a big thing down here for a long time, especially on the Tennessee River. Up north, where I'm from, in Wisconsin, you don't hear about it that often, other than maybe a shad wrap. But I've kind of learned that it's very effective, especially last year when I fished on the Tennessee River, Fort Loudon in February, cold water. Definitely very effective, and I have had success on some lakes in Wisconsin, one in particular in the spring. So I just want to talk about the technique a little. I'm by no means, an expert on it compared to a lot of the people from this part of the country, but I have had some success with it. So basically the premise of it is flat-sided, very thin crankbait, designed to have a tight wobble. Typically they're going to be balsa, or some of the newer ones are plastic. So the one that I've probably had the best there's two of them. One in particular last year would be the PH Custom Skinny P, and this is one that definitely has a cult following. The only reason I really knew about it was I had met the owner of the company, Phil Hunt, down on Gunnersville several years ago, and he had talked about them and all that, and I just at that time I don't know, I didn't really feel a need to spend $25 on a custom handmade, hand-painted, hand-tuned flat-side crankbait. But last year, before I went to Fort Loudon, I had read up a lot, researched all kinds of stuff, and this was the one that kept coming up in all these forums and blogs, just different conversations. So I actually knew a guy, Gary Atkins, who was friends with Phil Hunt, and he gave me his phone number. So I'm like, I'm going to call this guy and just pick his brain a little bit. And honestly, I wanted to try to get a little bit of a discount on the baits because they're expensive. So I ended up talking to him for quite a while, very knowledgeable, obviously, and just kind of about the technique in general, because I hadn't had a lot of experience other than, like I said, one particular lake up north. I have had some good success with it in the spring. Not his bait, but a different one that I'll talk about. And so I talked to Phil. I said, okay, so what's what rod do you throw it on, what line, all the basic stuff that you would think that I would know, but I just don't have a lot of experience. So he told me, you want to use a real soft rod, really soft rod. 10 or 12 pound fluorocarbon line, and he said the one thing he kept stressing is it's not a square bill, it's not going to crawl through trees like a square bill, but you can get it through around stumps and in brush, stuff like that. You can work it around, you just have to fish it really slow and kind of finesse it through that stuff. So I was like, okay, that's cool. So I went to Fort Loudon and I put on the Skinny P. I had probably three different ones out. I had the Skinny P, I had the Rapala OG Slim, I had a Spro Lil John, which I really like, and I had a couple different rods. The one that I threw the most starting out was the Victory 7.2 medium heavy power, moderate action. I don't remember what they call the rod, but it worked pretty well. But it seemed like a lot of the fish that because I started catching them on it right away in practice. I was like, okay, this thing works. And a lot of the fish that I was catching they didn't have the bait real deep in their mouth. It was kind of on the outside. So what I did is back in the day, St. Croix made a legend tournament that was called Small Cranker. It's a 7-foot medium power moderate action, really whippy rod. I mean, I hardly used it anymore. I used to throw Bandit 200s on it a lot, but I kind of went to a different rod for that. So I brought this thing with, and then every fish that I hooked on that thing had it all the way down its throat. So Phil was definitely right about throwing a really whippy rod. The downfall with that, it's a little, it's a hard bait to cast because it's so light and thin. Is just not much to it, and it's balsa. There's no rattles in it. There's no weight transfer, so it's tough to cast in the wind or just to be accurate with it. And then if you go with a real soft rod like I did, it's even harder to be accurate with it. So either way, that was the rod that I felt was perfect for it. Now down here in Chickamauga, like I said, I just got here today and I tied on a skinny pea. And the first little cove I went into, I caught 2 right away on it. Not big ones, but I caught a couple. And I'm throwing it on a different rod that I can't really talk about much yet, but it's very good too. Definitely going to be very good for this technique. But now just kind of a little about the difference. So that's the skinny pea. Balsa, handmade, PH Custom Lures. Highly recommend this one. There's different sizes. He's got a whole bunch of different stuff, but this is by far the one you hear the most about. It's what I've had the most success with. Very good bait. Tons of colors. It's got a circuit board lip. It doesn't have a square bill. It's kind of a round lip. But highly recommend that one. The other one that I've had success with for a long time is the Spro Little John, which John Cruz designed. And this one I actually, one of the times Gander Mountain went out of business, I bought a whole bunch of them. I had never really thrown it, but I bought a whole bunch of them. And the one particular color, I think it's called Misty Shad. It's kind of a chrome colored, but kind of a tannish back. That one on one particular lake up north is just, in the spring, it's really, really good. So this is a plastic bait, still has that kind of round, a little bit more edge to the bill on this one, but still that circuit board material. It does have I wouldn't even call it a rattle. I mean, it's kind of got a deep thud to it, but I think it's more just for casting, just some extra weight in there. But that's a really good one I've had a lot of success with. The other one that you've been hearing a lot about the last few years is the Rapala OG Slim. Same style bill, a little bit meatier than that skinny pea from PH Custom, but still that circuit board lip, round lip. This is the one that Octafo designed. It was an old. What he did initially is he took a Rapala DT flat, took the regular bill out, and made his own bill, and that's what kind of spawned out of his creation was this thing. And it's a good bait. A lot of tournaments have been won on it. Super good in the cold water, tight wobble. It's balsa once again, so pretty buoyant. So that's the other one. And then another plastic one that has been just huge in the last 2 or 3 years is the Berkeley Flatsided, which I personally have not thrown this very much. It's kind of got a different shaped bill on it. I wouldn't call it a coffin bill, but it's a little more flared, not as round. With that design, it should deflect a little bit better than with them round bills, but a ton of money has been won on that thing. I just haven't thrown it much. I obviously have some of them, but it's not something that I have thrown much. I'll typically go with that skinny pea or that Little John. And then the other one that I just got a hold of that I haven't thrown yet is this Bagley. Real thin balsa once again. I mean, Bagley is one of the most legendary companies when it comes to balsa. Multiple classics have been won on Bagley crankbaits, primarily the square bills, but I'm excited to throw this too. It reminds me a lot of that skinny pea, except for it does have a longer bill and it's more square. So I don't know how it's gonna perform compared to that skinny pea. I kind of put everything up against that skinny pea because that's the one I like the best so far. But it looks really good, good shape. In the bill, it should dive a little deeper. I don't know, I haven't thrown it yet, but I got some of them too. So that's just kind of a general take on flat sides from me. Once again, I'm not by any means some expert who's fished the Tennessee River for 25 years and can tell you all the intricacies of it, but it does work really well. And going back to that skinny pea in that tournament at Fort Loudon, I had, I had 2 or 3 different things going. I was catching them on the skinny pea, I was catching them on a jerk bait, and then I was catching them on, this little shaky head or Ned rig. In the first 2 days of the tournament, I never really got them on that crankbait. The wind didn't blow, and I just was kind of locked into that other stuff, and I was doing fairly well. And then the last day, it kind of all fell apart, and I ended up just having to fish new water. And what I ended up doing was fishing these flat pockets, and there'd be little isolated pieces of brush, pretty shallow, 2 to 4 foot. And I remember Phil saying, it's not a square bill, you can't burn it through that stuff, but you can kind of finesse it through there. So what I was doing is I would, make a long cast, and I would crawl that thing up to that brush, and I was basically kind of like, I was calling it worming it through the brush, where you could kind of feel it clanking through, and you'd feel it get hung up, and I would just kind of shake my rod a little bit and let it float up, and then start reeling it, and just kind of really finessing it through them brush piles. And I don't even call them brush piles, just little isolated pieces of brush or wood on shallow flats. And I ended up catching all my fish. I think I had the biggest bag I had, which it wasn't much, it was like 10 pounds. But I ended up catching all my fish on it that day, worming it through that brush, which was awesome because I was prepared to not have a good day because both of my other primary things kind of fell apart, and I ended up just fished all completely new water. I think I caught 6 keepers. I did lose 1, but all the fish I weighed that last day came on that skinny pea, and I ended up, that was like my best tournament of the year. I think I ended up like 21st or something, which is obviously not that great, but it was good. For scrambling and not having a lot of experience with that technique, it was fun. It was really cool. So check them different baits out. If you have any questions about the stuff, shoot me a message, or I'm going to try to post this on YouTube. So if you have any questions, leave a comment. Subscribe to my page. I obviously haven't been super active on it, but I'm going to try to just do some of this stuff, which it's nothing real exciting, but maybe it'll help you guys out. I know when I talked to Phil, that helped me a ton with that technique. So maybe some of the stuff I touch on this year give you a little head start on some of the techniques and things that I do that have been successful for me. So thanks a lot, and I'm gonna try to do it every week, so keep looking and I'll keep making the videos. Any suggestions, let me know. Thanks a lot, guys, for following along.